Why don't you have a pork bun in your hand?
Welcome everyone! Guess what? I bloody forgot that Assassin's Creed Syndicate wasn't the last episode in the spin-off series thing. Oops. Well, anyway, today we're taking a look at the open world action-adventure game Sleeping Dogs. And more specifically, its Definitive Edition. The original game was developed by United Front Games and published by Square Enix for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Windows in August of 2012, while the game got remastered for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Windows in October of 2014. There's also a macOS version which was released in March of 2016 by Feral Interactive. Because I'm also covering the DLC, I need to explain the story in 4 parts. The main game's story follows cop Wei Shen, who returns to Hong Kong after growing up in the United States. As a cop, his objective is to become a part of the Sun On Yee Triad and help the HKPD disassemble it from the inside. Along the way, he meets and helps Jackie Ma, his childhood friend, and Winston Chu, his friend and Red Pole of the Sun On Yee. Wei's enemies include Dog Eyes, a rival Red Pole from the same area, Big Smiley, who's not a levitating murdering emoticon as much as you'd want him to be, and Wei also gets into trouble with his superiors in the HKPD. In the Zodiac Tournament DLC, Wei travels to the Zodiac Island to fight in the mysterious Zodiac Tournament, where he fights Zodiac people. Actually, scratch that last Zodiac, the people aren't based on Zodiacs, at least as far as I know. Anyway, Wei fights in the tournament basically just to figure out what it's about and to spoof all the 80s kung fu movies. Wei takes on an array of different enemies, most of who sport different fighting styles while millionaires bet on their outcomes. This is personally my favorite DLC for the game, and if anything, I found it to be a bit short. And now from my favorite to my least favorite DLC. In the Year of the Snake, an Apocalypse Death cult wants to blow parts of Hong Kong up, because they believe that once the Year of the Snake starts, the world ends. Wei has to stop them from doing this. That's pretty much it. In Nightmare in North Point, Wei has to fight off an army of Jiangshi and the resurrected Sun On Yee member Smiley Cat to save his girlfriend. While Wei chases after Smiley Cat, he also has to once again defeat the people he's already killed once. To be quite honest, there's just so much to do in this game that I'm not quite sure where to start, so I guess let's start with the basics. The game has a mostly non-annoying level system where a lot of things have skill trees. And by a lot, I mean 4, and by skill trees, I mean 3 of them have 2 paths, one where to join in the end so you'll get everything anyway, and one that's actually more a skill line than a skill tree. Anyway, moving on, the game has a skill tree for cop skills, another one for triad skills, a skill tree for your fighting knowledge, and another one for your face level. Let's go step by step. Being an undercover cop who's trying to become part of the triads, you'd probably assume that there'd be some gameplay mechanic attached to this, and you'd be right. Each mission that isn't a favor keeps count of your cop and triad ratings. The way you get rated for these is ever so slightly different from the other, as your cop rating goes down when you do bad things like hurting innocents, destroying property, or for whatever reason accidentally bumping into Hotshot's car. But your triad rating goes up if you do things that fit or build your cover, things like taking care of hostiles, damaging the enemy's vehicles, or using a variety of moves when in a fight. Which brings us to the question, how do you get a variety of moves in the first place? Well, you start out with a basic combination, and if you can actually figure out the combinations for the punch-based moves you unlock, you can use them prematurely, but they only seem to be picked up once you legit unlock them, so you might as well unlock them. As for unlocking them, which is what brought us here in the first place, but never mind that small tidbit, So, you unlock these moves by finding jade statues for ways mastered, Sifu. There's 11 of these statues overall, and there's 2 you can only get during missions. There's also one that's a bit progression locked, as you need to do a couple of missions before the place unlocks, but you can get the rest the moment you're done with the tutorial. As for the face level, you get face by doing favors and through fight clubs, to which we'll come back. As for why you'd want to get face, you can buy more stuff with a bigger face level, and it offers some pretty good passive upgrades. Things like food and other consumables having stronger or longer lasting effects, getting a discount off of everything you buy, and the best of them all, your own car wallet. Ballet, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Now to move on to side activities, you have races, which are more or less what you'd expect, drug busts, where you have to beat up a number of thugs, hack the closest security camera, and then go home and arrest their dealer by pointing out who it is. There's also karaoke, and if you're in need of money, you can get some by visiting the gambling dens or betting money on cockfights. There's also special events like Shaolin Showdown and the 1000 Cuts. There are additional cup missions called cup jobs in case you mess up a lot during main missions and need the additional XP. These also unlock things like police uniforms and vehicles for way. These can range from assisting in stopping an armed robbery, to dealing with hostage situations as a sniper, to stopping wanted cars and arresting the thugs who drove it. To go back to the fight clubs, there's a fight club located in every borough of Hong Kong. There are 6 waves of enemies in all of them, and as you'd expect, each wave gets harder. They really are more or less what you'd expect. But I also mentioned food and other consumables. There are consumables in this game that give you buffs. Food gives you health regen, massages help you build your face meter, tea gives you damage reduction, and so on and so forth. And speaking of health, you get more of it by praying at shrines. You need to pray at 5 of them to get 10% more health, so it might take a while. In the Zodiac Tournament, the gameplay is pretty much the same. There's no real big difference between the main game and it, aside from having quick time events for some of the bosses, I guess. Here the snake is just cup jobs turned up to 100. I mean, they aren't the same kinds of cup jobs you do in the main game, but for some, that might even be the problem itself. What changes in Nightmare in North Point is that the Jiangxi pedestrians might attack you for no good reason. The Jiangxi having more health than the normal thugs, only being able to hit the Yaguai when having a rosewood, I think it was, sword, or whatever the Fates mode's replacement's name was. I kinda ran out of time while making this video, so I can't show you a side-by-side comparison of the original game and the definitive edition, but the game looked good on the 360 and it looks even better now. The game's music is pretty good and the soundtrack's right and, in my opinion, achieved representing what you might find on the radio there, while also appealing to different music tastes. So let's wrap things up. Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition is a pretty good part of a pretty good game. You have loads of things to do, the mission variety is good, the characters are good. You know, I can't really complain about a whole lot when it comes to this game. If I'd have to though, I'd bring up the sometimes sickening camera, and the drug bust missions being a pain in the ass when you're not focusing on them. Overall, to repeat myself, I think that this game is pretty good. So what do I give it then? Well, I believe that it's fair if I give this game a 9 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed this video, and with that, goodbye.